And welcome back to Open Your Eyes. We are moving into our first segment for the morning, Discipline in Caribbean Context. We've got our panel in with us. This is actually about positive behavior intervention. Now, we've got folks in who are professionals who actually are living it as we speak. Now, in with us, we've got Lavern Ferguson, who is a standard 3 teacher at St. Luke's Methodist, and she has been in the profession for, can I say the amount of years? Because I am proud of it, 30 years. All right, 30 years. Also next to her is Danika Garnette, who is a standard 6 teacher at St. Luke's Methodist. Now, she has been in the profession for 17 years. On my right is, is Josephine Flowers, who is the vice principal at EP Yorke, and she has been in the profession for 37 years, from 1982. Wow. Mm-hmm. And also Samson Jacobs, who is a teacher and counselor at Maud Williams High School.
Sadie Vernon.
Sadie Vernon. Okay. All right. So Sadie Vernon. Guys, it's nice to have you in. Welcome and good morning.
Good morning.
We're ready and set to have a discussion. Now, this one is dear to us because we were all students once. Mm-hmm. Now we are parents and we've got children who are students now. Let's get into it from the standpoint of not necessarily the punishment, but at this particular point in today's day and age, how we're dealing with disciplining our children. Mm-hmm. If we should start there. 37 years.
Over the years, I've seen everything change. And to me, it goes right back to the home. If we discipline our children at home, when they come to school, they will be a little bit disciplined. They will listen to what the teachers have to say. They will follow rules and respect authority. If we respect authority, we should have no problems with that. So I can speak about, in my time, mm-hmm. They had to say something to me once. And I told them my father would have whipped me. Mm-hmm. So I didn't like it, I didn't do it. Mm-hmm. I went to school and I was the same thing. All my teachers, they loved me because I followed what they said to do. And that is something we need to teach our young people. Somebody is telling you, giving you advice, not to punish you, but to show you the right way. Mm-hmm. Put you along the right path. Mm-hmm. So to me, life is simple, you know. Once you follow, and once you confirm to authority, you have no problems.
Mm-hmm. From where I stand, I mean, I've been teaching at St. Luke for over 20 years, about 23 years or so. And we live in a unique kind of, I teach in a unique kind of environment where we have a lot of poverty, children come from different disadvantaged backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And so that creates a certain level of problems where discipline is concerned because you don't want to be unfair to those children. Mm-hmm. All right, you want to try as much to understand where they come from. Yeah. Try to understand what they're feeling on that particular mm-hmm. day. All right, but it kind of creates a problem for us as teachers because you're thinking, well, this child may have this problem, but in society or wherever he's going to go, there will be no special treatment for him if he violates or if he misbehaves and that sort of thing. So you're kind of faced with a problem where discipline is concerned. I mean, where initially, when I started teaching, you were able to whip children, you were able to spank children if they did wrong. And we knew that, you don't whip them unnecessarily or in excess, all right? But, you were taught to, understand the child as well and try to meet them where they are and try to discipline them in such a way that they understand that this is for their good.
Yeah. Let me interject here. First of all, I want to say thank you for all the years of service that you've done. I come from a household of 2 educators. I understand the work that happens beyond the classroom mm-hmm. and the amount. I mean, you are on 24/7 on your job, whether you're at the market, church, wherever, and you're constantly thinking about these children who are almost your own because mm-hmm. you take care of them for an entire school year. Discipline is difficult even for parents. discipline in a classroom when it's not your biological child is even more challenging. And we are in a very special time because we're transitioning from what was the traditional form of discipline, which was inflicting harm on children, to now the concept, which is positive discipline. And I really want to ask, what do you see as the difference? And we can start here. What do you see as the difference within the children themselves that you're dealing with? Because the transition has been ongoing for quite some time. When I went to primary school, I had teachers that pull out pot spoon or rope and all kinds of things, or at least threaten it. And now I know that's not allowed. It's literally not allowed in the classrooms. So what have you seen in the difference of the children from perhaps when you first started to what you're seeing now?
Well, for me, I found out from back then to now that the students, a lot of them are very disrespectful. Because they know that you can't do them certain things in the classroom, they come to you with a whole lot of negative attitude and behavior. And myself as a teacher, I am rough. I would just take them up out of the chair, and I would talk to them in a rough manner sometimes to get their attention and to let them know who is in charge. Because sometimes if we don't do that, then they want to ride our backs, and we can't allow that. And then what we realize also is that the parents are not as involved as the parents back then. We do not have a lot of parent support when it comes to their children in our classroom. So that is a very, very big problem.
At what point did you notice this change? Because 17 years ago, when you started, you didn't find the amount of disrespect that you're finding now. And like you guys alluded to, we now are finding children that are very disrespectful because they're cognizant of the fact that you're not able to do anything to them physically. At what point did you start to notice this in your career?
Well, I notice it's getting worse, like over the past, I would say, about 5 years? About 5 years now.
Would you share the same sentiment, being in it for 37 years or 30 years?
Yes. Where positive discipline is concerned, it says that you are to try and use positive reinforcement, positive discipline to combat or to deal with negative behavior. All right, so I mean, it really puts a lot of strain on the teachers because we already have our hands full. Now we have to try and figure out, okay, what am I going to do with this child? How am I going to deal with this matter? I mean, it does, in a way, it's a good thing because it helps us to be more creative, and when it comes to our teaching, we have to kind of make sure that your lessons are geared towards your class, and you have to always be cognizant of the fact that you have students in here who may be easily distracted and all sorts of things. So you have to prepare your lessons in such a way that you minimize the distractions, you minimize their opportunities for them to stray. All right, so as a teacher, you have to be very creative to be able to manage your class using positive discipline, because you have to apply this across, I mean, not only where discipline is concerned, but where learning is concerned, teaching and learning is concerned. So positive discipline is a good thing, except that, like I've said before, when you put them in another environment, they don't have the same opportunities. They're in a different playing field then. They end up in high school and they have to comply. They have to do what the rules say, or they get expelled, or they get demerits and that sort of thing. And that kind of puts them at a disadvantage.
What I hear from you, and I think is a very critical point, is the training that is associated with positive discipline. And I want to bring Samson in here, because what has always been a clear distinction, at least in my generation, was corporal punishment ended at standard 6.
Yeah,
You know, when you got to high school, they couldn't lash you anymore.
Get a
So we
demerit.
were already phasing it out and using a different form of discipline. But Samson, as a counselor, if anyone gives trouble, I imagine you have to have your encounter with them. Talk to me about your reflections on positive discipline and the demands on teachers to be able to provide that.
I think the buy-in from the teachers is kind of difficult in terms of supporting positive discipline because it clashes with their own personal values, right? So that like I used to raise this way and now children have it their own way. It becomes overwhelming to the counselor because then the teacher, every issue in the classroom is referral to the counselor, right? And then remember we were on the show already when we had this discussion.
Yeah,
And
that
then
you're
the
not a
counselor
full-time counselor, you have to play a dual role of teacher and counselor.
Right? And how you juggle that dual role is the next issue.
Yeah.
Because when I'm in my office, I'm a counselor, but when I go into the classroom to teach, I put on the teacher hat.
So if you're a teacher and you need to refer a child, who do you refer them to?
Referring back to myself.
It's laughable. No,
Yes,
it's laughable,
at this
but,
point, yes.
but it's highlighting a major issue.
Exactly.
And so, and then the students will tell you, but then sir, you're not a counselor. But yes, because the students expect that because you're a counselor, you're supposed to live up to the norm of a counselor.
Yeah.
And just get in there and be, okay, kindly be seated, kindly be quiet, but that doesn't work, especially in a culture like my school, right? And I'm glad that Miss brought it up because St. Luke feeds our school their students, right?
Yeah.
It's the same behavioral issue we deal with.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So you spoke of, and that's so important, the buy-in from teachers who grew up in a different generation. We still hear it now. I'm sure we haven't checked in on the feedback as yet, but I'm sure people are saying, listen, that's why we have problems today because we're not lashing our children. And yeah, I think science has said repeatedly that it didn't work, and that's why we're moving in this direction. When people say, oh, we turned out fine, have we? I mean, let's look at society today. Well, okay, so I hear that. So my point is, society today, we don't have active citizens. We don't have people who speak up against wrongdoing. We don't have people who will put themselves out as leaders. We have, you call people who will simply adapt to whatever is being infringed on them, even if it's wrong. So I think there has to be a disconnect between what we are learning, and many have said it goes back to some of the corporal punishment. You hit a child, but do they learn a lesson as to why? They get pain and they don't want the pain, but what is the lesson they learn? So you're one of the, and that's fine, you're one of the people who say it worked then. So my question is, what does pain to a child teach them?
What happened, I didn't endure a lot of pain. I was a child who listened most of the time to my parents because I grew up in a village. And in the village, once you are moving around and you're doing what you're not supposed to do, anybody could have spanked you, right? But now, it's not like that. You don't dare touch anybody's child.
Yeah.
Because they're coming to curse you out, or they want to war with you or something like that. So I didn't endure a lot of pain because my grandfather, I grew up with my grandfather, and they used to talk to us a lot. They told us what they expected of us, and we used to attend church. So if church was 5 times for the week, all of us would be at church 5 times for the week. And I think that is also a part of the problem because God is not in it.
What I hear you saying is that whipping doesn't really solve problems, and that is true. Because I mean, I am of the belief that when, especially at Standard 6, I don't really like doing it and I don't really feel that it's beneficial to them because, I mean, in reality, they're old enough to be able to process information and know what's right and wrong, and know what's going to benefit them in the end. And that's what I do. I do a lot of talking to them and explain to them, you know, this is this is what you want. You have to make that decision. I mean, ultimately, you are the one that's going to lose out if you don't listen. All right, but there must be some level of respect, some level of fear. Remember, we talk about fearing God. Even God, I mean, You fear, if you have a teacher who you don't fear, then you will not respect that person. Right. All right, and maybe that is the reason why they used to punish us in that manner. Because you only have to lash one child. I mean, back in the days when we used to lash, you lash one, two, and you don't have that problem anymore. Because they fear you, they respect you. Some of them won't literally have that fear for you, and some of them will. Some of them will think, if I get that lashing there, you know, I don't want that. I don't want to be humiliated. Because lashing is a humiliating process.
Especially in front of everybody else.
We know that it humiliates children. We know that children feel bad when they get a whipping, right? But there must be some level of respect in the classroom where children understand, hey, this is a teacher, I am the student. And there is a level of authority here. You are the authority figure. The teacher is the authority figure. If I don't respect that, then we will never have, you know, we'll never get through a lesson. We'll never be able to get through classes. There will be disorder and disorder. Society says it. We don't whip them. You're saying, okay, positive discipline. But what happens when they get out into society? The GSU, what happens to them then? We don't whip them. We're not allowed to whip them. And they're saying, our society, you know, we don't want to punish these children. But what happens when they get out in society? How long do they last in high school? They don't fear anyone. They don't fear the teachers. They don't have respect for the teachers. So then what happens? All right? They move into society feeling that, you know what, I can do what I want. Nobody will punish me. And then they get a rude awakening because the GSU and the police, really, they shouldn't be doing the things they do, but they're doing it.
Yeah.
And do we say anything? We speak out about it, but it's the norm and it's accepted that they can do the things they do.
That's a great point.
Two things they keep mentioning, and you will hear it: respect for everybody, because you have to respect. I tell them simple rules, you know: respect yourself, respect your classmates, and respect your teachers.
Yeah.
Those should be the three simple rules in everybody's class. And over the years, I've seen that gone. Sometimes I wonder, especially when I see a young teacher coming in, you have to respect yourself first before your students could respect you. And respect is mutual. You respect them and they should respect you. But they also must have respect for the authority in the class. We have processes at high school. If you don't agree with something the teacher do, you go to an administrator. You don't just take it upon yourself to act out. And we have some children who act out because of their something that they're lacking in their developmental stage. But otherwise than that, everybody should be respectful. So I don't go for disrespect in the classroom. No student should disrespect their teachers. Teachers have already gotten what you have, what you need, and they are here to share it with you. I was speaking to some food farmers yesterday. I'm telling them, some of the things we allow you to get away with, when you get your job, you will not be allowed to buy your boss.
Yeah.
So we must deal with reality. And I think it goes right back over the years. I have seen drastic change in that. Because I remember being at St. Michael's when one of the students wanted to drop a chair for 3-story up on a teacher's head.
Wow.
And when that child got their last suspension, and then they called back and said that we have to take them back. I said, no. For what? So that they could kill somebody? So we need to draw a line. What positive can you tell this child? That is not how we react to things. And sometimes teachers have to model the behavior too. How do I react to something that happens in the class? Because you know what, they're looking at you, you know. They want to see how you will react before. And then they will do the same thing. Miss, but you did it. You see, because they put themselves online with you, that they're up here with you. And when we deal with the older ones, especially the ones who are going to get ready to go out, we have to prepare them for transition to 6th form. Nobody will baby them in 6th form. And that is what she is saying. When they go there in society, GSU won't baby them. Come, babes, let me take you home. You don't belong out here. No, they will not do that.
Children learn from action, from our actions.
Yes.
It's fascinating to see, and I think when you talk about modeling the behavior that you want from children. That's such a key point. But what I don't hear in the conversation so far, and I want to ask, and this is not an indictment on anyone, but there's a partnership that's involved in being able to raise productive adults, and that's what we're doing. When they go into a classroom, that's what you're doing with children. That's what parents are hoping to do in their homes. But what about the role of parents? Because one of the questions I've always had is, if corporal punishment is eliminated from the classroom and you go get training and you learn how to practice positive discipline and teaching children how to correct their behavior, but they don't have it at home, it's a mixed message.
Right.
And Samson, you're shaking your head. Just go ahead and jump in anytime.
I'm shaking my head because I dealt with an issue Monday, as of Monday this week, with that same issue, because here I have, I think it's a 58-year-old mother, and the daughter is 15. And basically she is telling me that, Mr. Jacobs, I don't allow my daughter to go phone on weekend because X, Y, and Z. And so I stopped and I asked her, I said, Miss, how did you raise, we had a discussion and she's like, I never had this and my daughter not supposed to have that, and I tell her there is a big generational gap. I said what was not the norm then is the norm now. And not to say that we should accept it, but with teenagers we need to think modern, we need to think 2000, and we need to work with them, right? And she was saying that the things that I did not do as a child, I will not allow my daughter to do.
So
Lavern had something.
So what you're saying is the truth. Where positive discipline would work fine if it was an ideal situation. But the reality is parents don't know how to parent children. We've had situations where we have called parents in and they have not shown themselves up to now.
Actually,
all right, literally they have not presented themselves. They will literally tell you they're not coming. I've had situations where parents say, well, I had in mind my boat and I did this and I did that and I will not come. All right, and they have literally not come. And then when you ask them, when you look at the situation at the home, you establish that, hey, you know what's happening here? They feel like that's the norm there. And then when they come here and we want to enforce certain discipline on them, it's not working. No. It's not, that's the ideal situation would be where they would come in and we discuss what would be a suitable punishment for the child and all of that, because that is what positive discipline is all about. You want to find a suitable punishment, one that would, and one that's different from actually punishing the child with a whip or a cord or a stick. Yeah. But then we don't have that participation of the parent to actually carry through with this. The ideal situation is not there. And that's the problem. That's a big problem with positive. And then the thing is, we can't whip those children the way their parents whip them. Some of them get some serious whipping. Yeah. You as a teacher,
some of them are abused.
That's why abuse. That's what I'm saying.
They're abused.
So I have children in my standard 3 class who, if I tell them I will call their parent, they start crying immediately because their parents are cruel. Their parents are cruel to them. All right, I can't whip those children like that. I've never been whipped like that before in my whole life. Not by my parents, not by anyone. So I don't believe in whipping students to that point, and their parents are doing it. So then when they come to school and they do things that are wrong, and you try to find a way around it, it's a joke.
I feel like right now we are in a society where parents actually look at educators as babysitters. I don't know if you guys are seeing this.
True.
That's one.
Especially at my school.
And I feel that right now children are having children. They are out of the era of not being whooped because it is you're not supposed to do it. So whooping now is basically something taboo. You're not able to do it. So it trickles down to that the teachers who are now the babysitters need to find a way of how to discipline the child. Miss Love, you mentioned something that struck me, and it brings me now to the Ministry of Education. Not necessarily the Ministry of Education, but the educational system of teaching upcoming educators of how to positively discipline a child. So I will ask the question to all four. What is positive discipline. Now, the reason why I'm asking this is because on the scroll during the news last night, this was one of the topics that was on there. So young educators actually say, I want to listen to this so that I could find or examples of how I could positively discipline the child. What is positive discipline?
Okay, positive discipline is being able to, first of all, it has two aspects. It has to deal, it deals firstly with management of your classroom. Yes. So you have to find a way to manage your classroom in such a way that you do not need corporal punishment. You find ways, like I've said earlier, you have to be creative, find ways to structure your lessons, structure your seating arrangements. Everything must be set in such a way that you minimize the need to resort to any sort of corporal punishment. You're working in such a way. So first it's management, and then it's the teaching learning situation. You find positive ways to educate your students, positive ways to reduce negative behavior. All right, you are going to combat negative behavior with a positive strategy that will minimize that. For example, maybe you have chatty students. I have that situation now at standard 3 because I haven't taught at standard 3 for like over 20 years. So now I've gone back, and I've now been challenged with finding ways, creative ways to keep my class quiet. And they're very chatty, so you have to look at ways to minimize the chatting using positive strategies, strategies that will encourage them to think about, what, if I be quiet, this is what will happen. It often involves a lot of rewards and stuff like that. So that is what positive discipline is all about. In the teaching and learning situation, you want to create lessons that are, they move smoothly. It doesn't allow for teachers to be leaving their class and walking up to talk to the next one down the road or in the next classroom. There is no room for that. All right, you as a teacher have to be on the ball all the time, because this is how it works. It will work more efficiently if this is what you do.
Why do you think some teachers are able to make the move towards positive discipline more effectively than others? What's the difference?
For the very same reason that Sir mentioned, parents are brought up in a certain way, and they have certain beliefs, and the same with teachers. Teachers believe, well, you know what, beating never killed me, and I'm a whip 1, 2 children I get whipping at my time, and look how I turned out, And like you rightly said earlier, the society that we have is one that lives in fear, and they don't want to make a move because they're afraid, and they're afraid to take risks and that sort of thing, and they're not open, right? Because we are a society, that lived with the mindset that, what, if I do something wrong, I'll be punished for it, and that sort of thing. We live in fear and so on. But, so that, I believe, is the reason.
First of all, when it comes to my classroom, the first thing I do when I get any student, we have to try and reinforce the rules. We let them know what our rules, what are our rewards, and what would be the consequences if the rules are broken. So from time to time, you have to remind them about the rules. All right? And so when we do that, it helps to put things in place. And it comes with our pockets feeling at times, because we have, where we say rewards, we would have little tokens that we would give for a certain behavior, and things like that. And we even, at our school, what we even do is try to have a parenting session. But how many of the parents take on the opportunity to come to that parenting session? And it is with our counselor and with our reverend from the church. And the sessions are very nice, because sometimes I would peep into the session and I say, man, what more can we do? And I remember a day we sent home for a parent, and when she come and say, you know what, miss? I can't deal it here now. So what can we do? He not listen to me. He do your own thing. He this. Then I like, oh my God, I see why. And then sometimes we find out that the children who are disrespectful and giving behavior, they're lacking love. So sometimes we become their counselor. We become their parents at times. Some students want to be at school more than they want to be at home because of the way you treat them.
Yeah.
I wanted to share that I think sometimes teachers maybe eliminate positive discipline because it requires more work. And when they have to, for example, if a student is misbehaving, they want immediate reaction. So it's a consequence, but they need to take time to find out why this child is behaving this way, and that requires work. So they go to the counselor, and then the counselor take that on. And I remember growing up in PG when we were misbehaving. In my days, I used to see my principal, Jane Locario, used to go to the lady who raised me to find out what is happening home. But you rarely see that now in Belize City, you know, that teachers will do home visits because they expect the counselor is supposed to do that.
I must say,
great point.
I must say that at our school, despite the fact that we rarely have parent participation, I believe that we've changed a lot. We've changed a lot of things, and now we're getting a lot more parents involved.
Nice.
And I've discussed it with my principal, and I think some of education helps because a couple of my principals did principals training, and now they're doing things a whole lot different. You know, instead of sending a note to invite them to the a note that says you must come to the PTA meeting, we send an invitation. All right, so we're trying to do things differently.
The messaging, just the simple messaging,
right?
Is
Because parents now feel, oh, my child bad. I don't know my child bad. Well, I want to come to school for hear more bad thing. All right, so they're not interested in coming. I mean, they're not interested because they already know what they're going to hear. So we try to do things differently. And that's what, I mean, positive discipline is a big thing. Parenting workshops like Miss.
It's a big shift for us in this country.
Right, and you have to think, you have to be creative. I mean, as a school, as institutions, you have to be creative. You have to think about ways to, you know, move around everything. How am I going to get my parents to come? What do these people like? And you got to think about them. You got to think about the children. What is it that they need? What is it that the school should provide? I mean, and again, that's a problem when where the focus is concerned, because you as a school know what the students need, but the Ministry of Education has their own ideas as to what these students need. They're thinking education, PSE, when in reality, when you have your students, you know, hey, these students need skills. These students, they don't.
There's a disconnect.
It doesn't really matter.
Yes,
it doesn't really matter that they pass PSE. We need to teach them skills that will. I mean, and you look at my school, our school. We offer so many different things to our students. We have high attendance at our school. We don't have a lot of dropouts. It's rare when students drop out of our school. Why? Because we find ways to keep them there. We find things that interest them. We're not only geared towards passing the PSC or the CXC or whatsoever, you know. We want them to be successful in life. And as a school, that's your goal. Your goal is to provide for the students in your school, right? I mean, where Miss Flowers is concerned, the students, and I'm hearing now from her that things have changed at EP Yorke. I mean, where we used to say, oh, EP Yorke is one of the best schools, and the school, I'm not saying that it's not still the best, but I'm saying,
jumping right now.
no, I'm not saying that we still realize that, yes, you guys are still the best, but where the discipline is concerned, it's different. I mean, you're getting different students, and remember, a school is a mini society. All right, so what you get is what is out there. And if the parents aren't parenting out there, then you're going to get problems. You're going to have problems. So as a school, we have to think of ways to get around it. We have to think of ways to combat the problems that we're facing, to deal with it like we said, in a positive way, so that instead of turning our students into little monsters who are going to go get out in the streets or send them out, because positive discipline in itself is trying to keep students in school. All right, that's the main part of it.
Which we should all want,
We
Yes.
right?
don't want
Yes.
because
Yeah.
because expelling students is not an option. I mean, especially in primary school, level, you plain out no. All right, but the problem is again that the system does not totally facilitate this process. It's not facilitating the process because when we have a student who is going to cut someone and stab someone, you want to keep them in school, but is it really rational?
Yeah.
Do you want a murder situation at your school or
No.
a Columbine or something like that? Really? No.
So, and that was going to be my question. What I hear is that there is a certain willingness. Some teachers perhaps struggle with moving past how they were raised and raising children differently or educating and disciplining them differently. But I do hear an openness to this move because that's where we're going. But there seems to be some missing elements. I'm hearing that very clearly. What type of support is needed that we can transform classrooms where it is a more positive environment, and you're not asking teachers to do the impossible, because that's what I'm hearing. It's you challenging what's happening at home, the overall environment that the children live in, and the mixed messaging that they're getting as well. What would help?
But what we need to realize, first of all, I said that we have these students here, we said we have them, we want to keep them together.
Yeah.
Sometimes keeping them together might not be the best thing, as Miss just explained. Not everybody is set out to sit down and one of the things it comes with, you need to know your students.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And it only comes by speaking to them.
Yeah.
So if you walk into a classroom and behave like you are high and mighty,
Oh, God.
you will never know your students.
Yeah.
And you will give them something to do that they can't do. So we need to know our students.
Yeah.
And I always say, we in Belize, we tell our students we have lots of rights. Who is teaching them about responsibilities?
Good question.
Well, the education should be rights along with responsibilities.
That is
Yes.
It should be.
That's so I tell you, you
Yeah.
have rights, but this
It
is
comes
your
along.
responsibilities. These are your
Comes with
responsibilities.
responsibilities.
It
Absolutely.
And that should come from beginning.
Yeah.
Because if they don't learn it there, when they come to us, it's different.
What are the
But
is that conversation being held in the home? You know, and I
Most
think
of the
I think that's one of the questions that we need to tackle. Besides that, I wanted to ask, as I sit and I listen, and I say, you know what, for the most part, the onus is on the parent, or are on the parents. Now, why I'm saying this, and I wanted to ask the question, are students or children personalities a direct replica of their parents, or
some
do they have
cases.
their own personality?
We have mix in some cases.
Yes.
When you meet the parent, you see why the child is behaving the way they are.
So the parent not the problem.
In
No,
some
in some
cases.
cases. In some cases.
cases, yes.
Not in all. Not in all.
some cases,
In
yes.
most of the time, when you have a child, and when we say that the child, you find out that the child is lacking love, you surely, you care about them.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I always tell my students, I want you to learn what I have. And they will keep telling you, people, if you ask people, they'll say, Miss Flowers, I share everything I know. I don't keep anything as a secret.
True.
I did not get my education by just looking at other people and going to school. You learn from others. Your teachers are your mentors, and so you want to mentor your students.
Yeah.
That is why when we went to college and teachers college and got our training,
Yeah.
we learned about nature versus nurture. All right, you have not things that will come naturally from our students, but nurturing them. When you nurture them,
even
when you facilitate
Yeah.
the kind of environment the kind of person that you want them to be.
Yeah.
You as a teacher have to create that environment, that loving, that supportive environment for them, and that will help them to be the kind of person you want them to be. No mind they go back right after that into their homes and into their families and so on, but that is where the battle is.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where we have a battle. But where you were talking about how do we get the support? First of all, I think that the Ministry of Education has said to all schools, all right, you guys, you have to, they've removed corporal punishment, they removed that system of discipline, and they've said to us, well, you guys come up with something that works. I don't think that is the way to go.
Yeah.
I really believe that the ministry needs to come up with something that will cover all schools, that all schools need to use.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, schools will vary and you will have a little bit of differences where your school is concerned, but don't come and tell me, okay, you do what you do best, be creative with it. No. There must be some
that's hard.
standards.
Yeah, especially if you,
Exactly.
if you didn't learn discipline that way. That's difficult.
And people will be people. So I will be me. I will discipline the way I see fit.
Yeah.
All right? And that might not necessarily be the way you see it or the right way. So that is where we need to standardize things. I mean, the ministry needs to come up with a system that will govern and that will cover all schools. Because like I say, when the students leave primary school and they go to high school, it's they're swimming in a different, in a different
pool,
ocean.
yes.
It's a different situation for them, and they're not. A lot of them, like Miss Laura said, can't cope because they feel like, oh, everybody's going to be, trying to keep them in and pamper them and that sort of thing. And now you find that you guys are trying to do the same thing. Yeah. And I've heard teachers from high school criticize primary school teachers and say, "Oh no, pet name pick neither too much." And I know for a fact that at sixth form they say the same thing about high school teachers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so
Oh no, pet name pick not too much. It's a transition because
you have to tell them when you get to sixth form, nobody's going to tell you your homework is due.
Exactly.
We give out 3 warnings for homework.
Or you should be at class.
So
That's
you
true.
don't do it the first time, the teacher give you one.
Yeah.
The second time you have it, the teacher give you another one, they merit, and the third time, then we call the parent.
Yeah.
You call the parent, and sometimes when you get to that parent part, that is when you reach the block. Because the children still don't bring their assignments.
Yeah.
So in high school, we don't have to worry about corporal punishment because that has been out for
A lot
I
of
guess
years.
before I went to high school. I can't remember anybody getting whipping
At
high
high
school
school.
Yeah.
in the
No.
70s when I went. So that has been out. But it is still a struggle to find ways to engage your students. And because we have mixed ability classrooms, the teachers has to do more work. Because you have to take care of the ones who are the high flyers. You have to make sure that they're engaged. Because
Exactly.
a lot of times in classroom, the ones who are giving trouble
are the ones who are the smart.
are not
Above average.
challenged.
They're bored.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
Not the ones who can learn.
they're considered special ed students,
Yeah, because
Gifted.
they need to
Yes.
be given tasks to
gifted,
do.
yes, because they're the
So
ones who
you
will
see, you're
do your
looking-
stuff, get
that's
it over
a reality.
with.
Yeah.
They're
That's
they're
a
considered
reality.
gifted, yes.
It is.
The
I mean,
That
if
means
a
special
child
ed.
is not mentally being challenged and forced to sit and be quiet and watch everybody
He or
else,
she gets
that's torture. in
Yeah.
itself.
and
That is
teachers
torture.
and teachers who have, I mean, the ideal situation again. We're not in an ideal world.
Yeah.
You have 30. I have 32 students. I don't know how much Miss Garnette has. She
And no
probably has a whole
assistant
lot.
teacher. Let's be clear. It's
No
one
assistant,
teacher.
one teacher. And the
Yeah.
thing is, the ideal situation is for how many? 15 to 1. I believe that is the system, the ratio, 15 to 1. We don't pass that long time.
So you're at 32. How many
I
students
am
do you
at
have in class?
32.
At present, I have 29 in my class, but
Wow.
in all of the standards, it is 91 that we
90
have to deal
students.
with.
I mean, so
On an
so
average at high school, what are your classroom sizes?
When we start out with 34 in some, 29 in the smaller classrooms, because we have 2 smaller classrooms. But when they get to second form, everybody has to have 33, 34. And that is when the challenge begins. Because we try to not keep them as a group. So this year we might experiment on keeping them as a group from the same first form to second form. But then when you get to third and fourth, you change.
Yes,
So we
because
have
of
one
the-
fourth farm with had 34 students. When you go in their class, there is no space to walk.
Wow. Yeah. Let me throw out a question here.
A lot
Because
of
we're so
challenges.
rapidly running out of time, and
I
this
know,
is such
I
a
know.
productive conversation.
Yeah.
And thank you for being so honest and open with us. I want to ask your opinion on something. Is it that we have passed the time to just throw out the rules, the curriculum, everything that we have been using for all these decades, and starting fresh with what we know now? A new way of educating children. One, we know they're mixed classrooms. 2, we know about the different learning abilities of children. 3, we know that positive discipline or positive reinforcement is the way to go in helping children develop into better adults. There are all these different things that science and technology has made available to us, but yet our system in school sounds so much like what it was from the beginning. Are we perhaps just past the mark of a refresh button? What are your thoughts?
No,
I'm thinking you can never start totally fresh.
No.
There's always value in what we've passed. I mean,
And
can always
that's it, the
you
value
can
of our
always
educational
use what
system.
we've used in the past. I mean, because now a lot of the things that we did in the past, we're coming back with. We're bringing them back because things like drill. I mean, nowadays
Drill work.
we were saying,
So why
oh,
did they remove it?
no work.
It worked.
It doesn't make sense to drill. Now what are we doing? We're going back for
to
those
drill.
old methods. So you can never throw out the old.
But
Totally.
I mean in terms
Some
of
of-
methodology and pedagogy, is
Well,
that where we are?
Still, there is no.
The same people who invented these things, those are the same things that are being taught. But as a teacher, you could adapt your style to it. You could put in your creativity.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, when is UB going to come up with something that they could test these teachers before they put them out there? Because some people are not made for the classroom.
But
This is not the type of job that you just collect a paycheck.
I'm telling
And
you.
some people are using it for that,
and
yeah.
when we were teachers, we started in the classroom, and then we did a period of time in the classroom, and we got some practice, and then we went to school.
Yes.
Then they decided
No,
to-
no, they're saying that you can't go in the classroom unless you
go to
have skills.
school.
And then you go to UB, and how long you take? When I went on internship, honestly, I was in teachers college. When I went on internship, it was like a whole year.
And now they do what?
Now they do what, 3 months?
one term.
Once
One-
There is no way
That's
you
it.
can learn, you can get the practice that you need in 3 months.
I think-
Absolutely not. I'm actually very sorry for students who've come to my school, student teachers, and you know what? We need to. Some of us need to get past what we were used to, because a lot of teachers are like, well, at least when I was training, a lot of teachers would be like, well, I learn myself, so you learn yourself.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is putting students at a disadvantage. So when teachers come into the classroom fresh and they don't know what to do, they don't have any
Any idea.
ideas. Me, I have 30 years of experience. I can think about ways to do things. And even myself, even I am going now looking in researching.
Yeah.
Researching. No, I have a sanitary class. Trust me, I had to research. And I have to
That's
get
what
on
it
my
is.
P's and
Technology.
Q's.
One second,
Right,
Danika
I have
has
to
a point to make,
research.
yeah.
This, I listened to you and you said about the teachers. But the thing is, what I have observed going back to school, many of the teachers today are not doing their own work. If I can pay you to get my work done, I pay you to get my work done. And this is what is failing us. That is
Really?
why when some of them
course.
get there,
What do you
they
mean,
cannot
work like
function.
Whatever it is
When
that
it
you
come-
need to get
I look at
completed.
some of them, they don't even do their own units. They don't even
Yes.
do their own lesson plans. People
Somebody
are
does that
doing
for
it
them.
for them.
Exactly.
So how can you
Exactly.
execute something that you did not do on your
And this is
own?
for the grade.
And the system does not facilitate the monitoring and the supervision, which I think is more important than the paperwork. The monitoring and supervision for me is more important than anything else.
They prefer to get
if
an
a
A.
teacher can get on, if a principal gets down on the ground, go class to class, every single day you have to do it. That is the way you will know if your teacher is teaching, you know.
Sit in the
There is
office
no
too
other
much.
way. Some people wait for the plans, sit down, check the plans and say, okay, good.
She's
This
doing
teacher
her
is doing.
thing.
And we know pretty notes don't, we like to say pretty notes, they make pretty teachers. Pretty notes don't make pretty
Samson,
teachers.
you've been very quiet,
Yeah, because
and
you're
I'm not
listening,
used
yes.
to that. Yeah.
Pretty notes don't make pretty teachers. They
I
have
am-
pretty notes
I am
because they
agreeing
can.
with that because
I can
too
get
went on
units from
internship,
anybody.
and of course I passed, right? And I have a teacher who I always argue with. I said, "Sir, you got a high grade," and I did not get a high grade on the internship, but I performed better than you,
I did.
right? And we argue why? Because I do the authentic form of assessment, right? Not the traditional one. So the students will do role play, drama, poem, whatever.
Yeah.
But that is what they like, especially at my
Yes.
school where
Yes.
literacy and numeracy is an issue. I need to know my students and
Get
assess
them more
them in their
involved.
strength. I
Yes.
cannot give them that traditional
Yeah.
test because I'm setting them up to fail, right?
Yeah, and that's the fundamental
Wow.
point. There's one thing that's been ringing in my mind the entire while, and I'm sure we all share that experience. if any one of us reflect on, because every person has it, teachers who've impacted you over your life, whether it was at university level or right down to primary school level, it's the teacher that saw the strengths in you. It wasn't the teacher who saw all the bad behaviors, because you know, every child will do bad things every now and again. They're not bad children, but they may do negative things. But when we think back, it's the teacher who saw the good in you or the positive strengths in you and reinforced that more than anything else, that made the greater impact on our lives.
Yeah.
You know, I want to commend you. This is a noble profession. I think a lot of times, and the fear I have sometimes is that people just love to do this generalization of teachers. And no, there are many great teachers in this country who want better for the children, but there are clear challenges in being able to get there.
Yeah.
So just in moving forward, because we got to round off the conversation. What's one thing, I mean, if parents are watching right now, other teachers, what's one thing you think we should do differently or perhaps see differently that you think would help the children that you have interacted with? What's that shift that we perhaps need to move towards, where this concept of having to go back to the way it used to be, where we whip children, is no longer the conversation, but what we can do to make them better?
Garnette?
I think that I am thinking this from last year too, as a teacher, that we must go more in the homes. And I believe if we go more, the parents would want to be more a part of it. They will feel more a part of it. You know, we need to visit the homes and know our students, know where they come from, and I think that will make a big difference in the classroom.
Miss Love?
I believe that schools, being in communities, need to relate to their communities. And communities need to share in the development of a school. Every business in a community needs to take ownership of that school, whatever school is in their community, and vice versa. Schools need to understand that their students will be part of that community. And if we take that into consideration, we will definitely move forward, because we need to really produce citizens and members of society, students who will become members of society, and we need to make them productive. We need to put them where they fit. All right, and if we don't do that, then we're creating a problem, and we as schools need to, first of all, and like Danika said, go into the homes, find out what's going on. And if we do that, parents will see that, you know what, I need to become a better, you know, a more involved part of my child's life and my child's school.
Yeah.
All right, I'm more involved and more contributing members.
For me, it's all the stakeholders taking on their responsibility. The parents, the student, the teacher, the ministry, and the school administrators. Everybody need to take on their responsibility. It cannot be a pass the ball game. So either the parent and the teacher supposed to do it, and then the ministry pass it back to the school that the school supposed to do it. Everybody need to be actively engaged in everything. It cannot be a one-man show.
Miss Flores?
And I want to say, with what he just said, everybody needs to see it as we are looking at the students. These are our end results. We want to create well-rounded citizens for Belize. And if all of us contribute our part, that is going to be the outcome in everybody's school. Because right now we are graduating 141. We have a few who didn't, and some are waiting on something to get through. But when we started out with these children, we gave them the opportunity. You speak to them, you try to roll, and then we try to involve parents. And when the parents come on board, those are the ones who are successful, you know. So we all depend on everybody. It's not just the school, it's not just the ministry, and it's not just the parent. And the students have to realize that all of us are rooting for them. We are not against them. We are rooting for them, because I want to see my students successful. This is one of my students.
So you feel the most pride right now, right?
Of course, because he has done so much. So when they say that student from this school, I always tell them, look at the individual afterwards. That is how we measure our success.
That's right.
I'm not rich, but
Rich with
I
blessings.
put out some rich kids.
Thank you. And I think your final point is really the most important.
Yes.
Collectively, I think all of us in this country, we
We
want
are
to support
responsible.
our children. And I'm so grateful for this conversation to just start a conversation as to what we can do and what we need to do more. Thank you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
You'll be just on time for school now.
Yes.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, it's to talk about the commemoration of the International Day of the Family. So stay tuned.